It creeps me out. I don't know what it is. When she talks, she's got this like gagging noise in her mouth. I don't know. Just take a quick, just listen.
According to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, Gaza health authorities said Israeli forces had killed more than 100 people trying to reach a relief convoy near Gaza City early on Thursday. Israel blamed most of the deaths on crowds that swarmed around aid trucks, saying victims had been trampled or run over. An Israeli official said the troops had, in a limited response, later fired on crowds they felt had posed a threat. While it is unclear what type of aircraft will be used, the C-17 and C-130 are best suited for the job. David Deptula, a retired U.S. Air Force three-star general, said airdrops are something the U.S. military can effectively execute. It is something that's right up their mission alley, he told Reuters. There are a lot of detailed challenges, but there's nothing insurmountable. Still, there have been...
What's so wrong with her throat or something? She's always got this click in her throat. It's like she's gonna gag or something.
Official speaking on the condition of anonymity said the airdrops would only have
kind of gross.
Impact on the suffering of those in Gaza.
Just listen to her voice real carefully. You hear that little what in there.
That ultimately, only opening up land borders could deal with the issue in a serious manner. Another issue the official added was that the U.S.
God, that's gross.
That the aid simply didn't end up in Hamas's hands, given that the United States did not have troops on the ground to oversee the aid distribution. Humanitarian workers always complain that airdrops are good photo opportunities, but allow the...
There is something wrong with her throat. I don't know what's going on. She's a weird lady, I tell you. Kind of weird. She always struck me weird. I don't know why.
But the only way to get enough aid in effectively was through aid convoys, which would follow a truce. It is arguable that the situation in Gaza is now so bad that any additional supplies will at least alleviate some suffering, but this is at best a temporary band-aid measure. It is not known whether the U.S. had sought Israeli agreement in advance on the airdrops or was coordinating the effort with it. Biden's announcement of a fresh aid delivery to Gaza was marred by gaps as he confused Gaza for Ukraine multiple times. The UN delivered aid to besieged northern Gaza for the first time in over a week on Friday, said the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The UN delivered medicine, food, and fuel to Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City.
And she's still got that thing in her throat. Almost like she's got spit or something in there caught. I don't know. It's gross.
This time the report is from a humanitarian aid point of view. Obviously, this effort now announced by the U.S. Airdropping the aid comes after the incident that occurred last week, which was already discussed in the last broadcast, in regards to the aid trucks and the 104, I believe, deaths and 700 injuries that occurred at an incident there at those trucks. And again, that incident has opposing narratives.
Who is this lady? Anybody out there know who this is? I mean, I've heard her a million times, but she's kind of got this creepy voice.
At the crowd of folks gathering to get to the aid, whereas the Israeli forces stated that the crowd was violent and that they felt their lives were being threatened, and this was the only suitable response. Again,
yeah, this is off my antenna I made. I'm going to have to show you the guys tomorrow. This vertical I made, and it works real good signal I'm getting off of it.
And I suppose the effectiveness of that is to be determined. But as some said, even if it doesn't solve all the issues, certainly any aid going in will be of benefit to the population in Gaza City, provided, of course, it ends up in the right hands. Something to watch. This next story is an update on one that was discussed in the last broadcast in regard to the missing girl in the Orlando, Florida area, and an update that
That's 124 miles away from me.
but one nonetheless that I wished I wouldn't have to give. The body of 13-year-old Madeline Soto was found late Friday in a wooded area of Florida's Osceola County, days after she went missing.
Oh my God.
The Orange County Sheriff's Office confirmed. Her body was located by search teams from the Osceola County Sheriff's Office at around 4:30 p.m. local time. No other information is being released at this time, the department said. Earlier Friday, authorities said in a press conference they were confident that Madeline was dead less than a week after she went missing. Orange County Sheriff John Mina said the case has transitioned into a homicide investigation following her disappearance on Monday when she didn't arrive at school. He said Madeline never made it to school on February 26th. Instead, we believe she was already dead at the time, and that Stephen Stearns, her mother's boyfriend, had moved her body in the early morning hours on that day. Stearns, again the boyfriend of Madeline's mother, Jen Soto, is the main suspect in the case, and he was arrested on Wednesday for unrelated capital sexual battery charges and child pornography charges.
Oh my God, I didn't hear about this one. And I live here in Florida.
Investigators have video evidence of Stearns throwing items in a dumpster in an apartment complex in Kissimmee around 7:30 a.m. that morning, before Madeline's laptop and backpack were found by detectives in that dumpster. He added that at approximately 8 a.m. that morning, there is evidence of Stearns returning to the apartment complex and that Madeline was visible in the vehicle, but they believe she was already dead at that time. Investigators noted that there is still a lot of information that they cannot yet release. It was also reported that Stearns was seen driving a silver 2010 Lincoln MKZ on Monday near Kissimmee and may have had a flat tire at the location where he dumped the body. Mina said that while the investigation started...
I never even heard this. Here, I live in Florida. I'm about 125 miles away from Orlando, and I didn't hear nothing about this. And I hear it on the international shortwave radio.
Very close to home, because in my
Weird.
case, the school where this occurred was very close by. Initially, the timeline of all of this was that on Monday morning, so this would be a week ago, the initial report was that the mother's boyfriend, who is now obviously the perpetrator and the murderer in this case, the initial report was that he drove the girl to the school, or near the school, I should say, and dropped her off, and that she wanted to walk the rest of the way to the school, and then she was never seen again after that point. So the implication was that something had happened on her way from where she was again dropped off. The claim was that she was dropped off in a church parking lot not too far away from the school, that she walked the rest of the way, and again something happened there. So initially, the majority of the investigation was in that environment, and I saw the search firsthand. There was a huge amount of police activity, which was good to see. This was a case that was taken very seriously right from the start. They had bloodhounds out there, they had many officers combing through the whole area. They were even in my yard checking the area out and everything. And despite such a thorough search, there was no trace of her in the area whatsoever. They had bloodhounds there, they didn't ever get a scent. Nothing of hers was found here. So obviously, if this was going on, they were looking into, of course, as one obviously should, the last person that she was seen with. And that was her mother's boyfriend. And sure enough, as they began looking into him, they took a look at his phone, And sure enough, through a brief digital forensic examination, they discovered absolutely horrific material in his phone that he had attempted to delete that same day. We're talking child pornography and many horrible, truly indescribable, vile, evil acts that occurred at the family home.
What is wrong with this lady's throat? Man, it's gross. Sounds like she's got to clear her throat, go or something. It's like she's got a bubble or something in there.
Because that's bad enough.
Ugh.
He wasn't cooperating with detectives. The girl's mother said she didn't know anything about anything here. And the fact of the matter was that this girl was still missing. Now, at the time of the last broadcast where I covered this case...
Too many pickles she might have ate in her lifetime. I don't know. It could be it. Too many pickles.
Yesterday I had speculated that I was fearing the worst, that she was dead, and that this whole report about her being dropped off by the school was merely a diversion by the boyfriend in order to get investigators looking in an area where she obviously never was.
I don't understand this. I never heard nothing about this on the news, nothing. No, I turn the shortwave radio on, I hear it on here. It doesn't make any sense.
The area where her body was found was miles and miles away from where the search here is, probably a good, in a straight line, probably a good 7, 8 miles or so. Maybe more, maybe 10 miles. And everything about her going missing on her way to school was just a fake story, again, to try to get everyone looking in the wrong place. Such a sad story to see. I could only hope that this girl is now at peace. And I could now only hope that the system here in Florida will do exactly what it's designed to do.
She's in Florida? I thought she was in, like, England or something. I didn't know that.
I wish people like this man never existed. Now going over to the state of Texas. Wildfires may have destroyed as many as 500 structures in the Texas Panhandle, Republican Governor Greg Abbott said Friday, describing how the largest blaze in state history scorched everything in its path, leaving ashes in its wake. Texas officials warned that the threat was not yet over. Higher temperatures and stronger winds on Saturday elevated worries that fires in the Panhandle could quickly spread beyond the more than 1,700 square miles already chewed up this week by fast-moving flames. The largest blaze, the Smokehouse Creek Fire, which began Monday,
I've heard about the Texas fire. That's terrible. My God, that's just nuts.
Scorched prairie, dead cattle, and burned out homes. The cause of the fire remains under investigation, although strong winds, dry grass, and unseasonably warm weather fed the flames. Governor Abbott, in a news conference, said a preliminary assessment found 400 to 500 structures had been destroyed. Abbott praised what he called a heroic response from fearless firefighters. It would have been far worse and far more damaging, not just to property, but to people, but for those firefighters, he said. The National Weather Service forecast for the coming days warns of strong winds, relatively low humidity, and dry conditions that pose a significant wildfire threat. Everybody needs to understand that we face enormous potential fire dangers as we head through this weekend, Abbott said. No one can let down their guard, and everyone must remain very vigilant. In the hard-hit town of Stinnett, population roughly 1,600, families were evacuated due to the Smokehouse Creek fire that turned Thursday to devastating scenes. Melted street signs and charred frames of cars and trucks.
Jesus.
Homes reduced to ash and rubble. An American flag propped up outside a destroyed house. We had to watch from a few miles away as our neighborhood burned Penny Phillips said, his voice trembling with emotion. Phillips' one-story home was still standing, but several of his neighbors weren't so fortunate.
Nice.
The Smokehouse Creek fire has also crossed into Oklahoma, and the Texas A&M Forest Service said Friday that it has merged with another fire. It was 15% contained Friday afternoon, up from 3% on Thursday. So an update on the wildfire situation in Texas. And I think that was an important point that was raised. Sometimes we forget because we always look at the containment, and sometimes we see these low percentages and we see the damage done by these fires, and sometimes frustratingly you might say, well, is anyone even doing anything about this? Sometimes though, when nature isn't on your side and when these situations, the enormity thereof is so great, there's only so much you really can do. And I think the point that the governor raised is true. The fact that even if it doesn't seem like much is being done, the firefighters and personnel who are out there risking their lives trying to battle this blaze, if it weren't for them...
I don't know, guys. I don't know if you guys ever heard this lady before, but man, she's kind of weird. She's got that weird,
than it is right now.
gross noise in her voice.
But hopefully,
Ugh.
despite the weather conditions not looking all that favorable for moving this blaze in, hopefully more developments will be made as far as being able to fight the fire are concerned.
Lady, you need medical attention.
Under control more quickly. So hopefully good progress will be made in the coming days. But also that testimony from that resident, how scary that must have been. And the feeling, I imagine, of just pure hopelessness, where you're standing there miles away, you're seeing the flames and the smoke, knowing that that is your neighborhood right there that's being burned, and you don't know what's being destroyed, what isn't, and there's nothing you can do about it. What a horrible, horrible feeling that must be. And finally, in the U.S. state of Oregon, a bill decriminalizing the possession of small amounts of drugs was passed by the Oregon legislature on
Jesus.
Friday.
There we go.
Undoing a key part of the state's first in the nation drug decriminalization law, as governments struggle to...
Oh yeah, have all these people like zombies in Pennsylvania, running around like a bunch of zombies, so that's legal. Give them needles, give them free drugs. Oh yeah.
A 21-8 vote after the House passed it, 51-7 on Thursday.
So freaking stupid.
The bill now heads to the desk of Governor Tina Kotek.
Yeah, do drugs, kill yourselves. Here's some needles, here's some fentanyl. Go do it. Walk around like a zombie.
Oregon Public Broadcasting reported. With this bill, we are doubling down on our commitment to make sure Oregon residents have access...
Frickin' Oregon? Where else? Pennsylvania is like a frickin' what is it, Walking Dead show. Shit show. Frickin' zombies running around the streets, living in tents and shit. Come on.
For our justice system, said Democratic Senate Majority Leader Kate Lieber of Portland. The measure will make the possession of small amounts of drugs such as heroin or methamphetamine a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 6 months in jail.
Oh, really?
Also aims to make it easier to prosecute.
What about fentanyl?
Drugs. It also increases access to addiction.
What about fentanyl?
Decriminalization of personal use amounts of drugs, okayed by voters in 2020 under ballot measure 110, was supposed to move hundreds of millions of dollars of marijuana tax revenue.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Leave the marijuana out of it. What's marijuana gonna kill you? Jesus.
Did not translate into an improved care network for a state with the second highest rate of substance use disorder in the nation and ranked 50th for access to treatment. Instead, the state of Oregon experienced one of the nation's largest spikes in overdose deaths, and pressure intensified both from Republicans and the Democrats.
Oh,
And a
Jesus.
well-funded
Yeah,
campaign
well,
group called for a ballot measure,
that's how it goes.
not without its opposition. Democratic Senator Lou Frederick of Portland claimed that the bill was flawed and would lead to the imprisonment of black men across the state. So that's an update on where things stand in Oregon. Obviously, this measure has its supporters and its detractors for various reasons. Nonetheless, it obviously is going to be passed. It made it through both the State House and Senate by overwhelming majority, and it has now been to the desk of the Oregon governor, who has supported
That's what a
this measure
signal.
as well.
That's not that antenna I made. It does a good job receiving.
I know there are a lot of people out there.
I'm definitely going to show you guys what it is.
Very supportive of total decriminalization of everything. And if it feels good, just do it and go hog wild. Getting my personal bias out of the way, I am not one of those people, nor have I ever been. I think that there needs to be limits on things. There are some things that just shouldn't be legal, quite frankly. Certain hard drugs being one of those things. That's just the way that I see it. And granted, as you may have reasons for seeing it differently, I have reasons for seeing it the way that I see it. And this measure is one that I personally support. And we'll see what happens. But this whole thing was interesting to watch. How back in 2020, initially everything was decriminalized, and this was very highly talked about, only for about less than 4 years later to completely go back on that and now recriminalize these drugs. And hopefully this effort will be able to help a bit as far as...
No, it's pretty far gone. No one's going to get off it now. A little too late now.
Maybe crack down on some of the dealers, make the streets a bit safer, and hopefully begin to reduce the startling amount of overdoses that you see.
What about the bums on the side of the street with tents?
Those are just my 2 cents. I think
That's just ridiculous.
That's the latest news from VORW Radio International. Now for the remainder of the broadcast, I will be balancing Alton's talk and discussion with some listener-requested music. Before we get into the music, though, please note, I have no analytics to this transmission. That means I have no statistics, no metrics, no way of knowing that there is anyone out there listening.
You should get your throat checked, lady. It's disturbing.
I emphasize that in every single show that I do, because if I don't know that there is an audience out there being reached, then why even do a show? The only way I know that this broadcast is even reaching anyone, anywhere, solely is if you write in, say hello.
Just watch my video. You can hear my video. I'm in Florida.
Mind you, of course, as a listener, you are under no obligation whatsoever to do any of this. If you want your privacy, I respect that. You don't have to do a thing. And just know that it is very important to me, to this broadcast, to know
God almighty.
that this show is reaching people. It's a lot of fun. I'll try to give some shout-outs a little later on in the broadcast as well. And it's very easy, likewise. All you have to do is send me an email. Let me know.
Oh God, here we go. Now listen to her voice. Here we go.
Let me know perhaps what frequency you're tuned in on.
Okay, now listen to her voice when she gives up the email.
Let me know whereabouts in the country or in the world you are catching this transmission. Likewise, if there is a song you would like to hear played in this broadcast, I am very lenient when it comes down to the music played. Any person, any artist, any genre, any era. Pick a song, any song. I shall note it down and try to the best of my ability to get it played for you. Alright, the way to send in an email now that I've...
Here we go. Here we go.
My whole spiel. Of course, it would only make sense to give an email address. VORWINFO@gmail.com. Once again, that's
Ugh.
VORWINFO @gmail.com, spelled phonetically. That's Victor, Oscar, Romeo, Whiskey, India, November, Foxtrot, Oscar @gmail.com.
Too many big
Perhaps
pickles.
write in while the next song is playing. The choice is yours, nonetheless. I'm actually going to break my own precedent, for those of you who are regular listeners, and I'm actually going to start things off with a song of my own selection, and then we'll get into the requests after that. Play the song Do Anything You Want to Do by Eddie and the Hot Rods.
Ugh. Anyways, that lady's got a medical issue or something. I don't know what her deal is. It's gross. I mean, if you're going to be an announcer or a broadcaster, you got this little noise when you're talking. There's something wrong there. There's something medically wrong with that situation. But anyways, guys, see you later. That was the throaty newscaster with the little noise when she talks. Anyways, 7-3, guys. Hope you all have a good night.